What if I told you that one of the biggest questions facing math today isn't about numbers at all? It is about thinking. Okay, so lately I've been getting a ton of news articles popping up going, mathematicians are shocked at what AI solved today. And okay, we're not shocked. We're not surprised. But there was a recent article in Science News that really caught my attention. And it wasn't about a new theorem or some impossible equation that AI solved. It was about how AI is beginning to help mathematicians verify proofs, checking every logical step with a level of precision that no human can realistically maintain for thousands of pages. It's fascinating, but it also makes me wonder, if a computer can tell us whether our math is correct, what happens to the process of actually thinking like a mathematician? To answer that question, I'm going to travel back about 1,800 years to a bustling city on the Mediterranean Sea, to Roman Egypt, to a man named Diophantus. So, before we get started, in case you're new here, welcome. I'm Gabrielle Burchak, and this is Math, Science, History. It's a show where I dive deep into the history of math and science, and I discover people behind the equations, the stories behind the science, and the history that shapes our modern world. Because history isn't just about the past, it's about understanding ourselves. And today, we're going to discover why a mathematician who lived nearly 2,000 years ago might have something important to teach us about artificial intelligence. Imagine walking through Alexandria around the 3rd century. I sure can. If I had a time machine, oh my goodness. Anyhow, the famous Library of Alexandria had already suffered devastating losses, but the city was still one of the intellectual capitals of the world. Scholars debated philosophy in courtyards, astronomers charted the heavens, and engineers built ingenious machines. Merchants would arrive from across Africa, Europe, and Asia, and it was the kind of place where asking difficult questions wasn't just encouraged, it was expected. And somewhere among those scholars lived Diophantus. Now, historians love certainty, but unfortunately, Diophantus didn't get the memo. So we don't know exactly when he was born, and we are not entirely sure when he died. On some level, his life is a mystery. But what I love about his existence and his story is that there are quotes from him that even Theon of Alexandria wrote. And in case you haven't had a chance to check out my book on Hypatia of Alexandria, Theon is her father. So we know that Diophantus had a powerful impression on the world of math in the years leading up to Hypatia's birth. And if Theon quoted him, then that means Theon likely taught Diophantine mathematics to his daughter. But we don't even know much about Diophantus's personal life, but what we do know comes largely from his work. And that work would change math forever. His masterpiece was called Arithmetica. Diophantus was referred to as the father of algebra by some historians, but honestly, I think that's a bit of an exaggeration because ancient Babylonians solved algebraic problems centuries earlier. And later mathematicians, particularly scholars in the Islamic Golden Age, would develop symbolic algebra much further. But Diophantus did something remarkably modern. Instead of simply asking, "What's the answer?" he asked, "What numbers satisfy these conditions?" And that sounds kind of subtle, but it's not. It, in that time, was frickin' revolutionary. So imagine someone tells you, if I have two numbers whose sum is 20, yeah, you can write it out. That's pretty easy. There are a ton of possibilities, but then they add, oh, and their product is 96. So now you are solving relationships between numbers. You are looking for values that satisfy multiple conditions at once. And that is exactly the kind of thinking Diophantus loved. He wasn't interested in math alone. He was interested in possibilities, mathematical relationships, numerical relationships, and patterns. So, does any of this sound familiar? It should. because this is how much of modern math and computer science works today. In fact, mathematicians still use his name because they refer to his work Diophantine equations. These are equations where we are looking for integer solutions, or sometimes rational number solutions. At first glance, they can look deceptively simple. For example, x plus y equals 12. Yeah, super duper easy, right? Until someone adds another conclusion. Maybe x times y equals 35. Or perhaps only whole numbers are allowed. Suddenly, the problem isn't about calculating, it's about reasoning, eliminating possibilities, and recognizing patterns. And that's where mathematics becomes less like bookkeeping and more like detective work. I love that, because math isn't just crunching numbers. It is solving mysteries. Sherlock Holmes had footprints, but Diophantus had equations. Now, here is something fascinating. Diophantus didn't have our modern algebraic notation. No equal sign, no x's and y's, and no convenient symbols covering the page. Can you imagine trying to solve algebra written almost entirely in words? Today's math students complain about word problems. Well, the Romans had it tougher. However, despite those limitations, his notation was astonishingly efficient for its time. It represented an important step away from writing math as long sentences and toward the symbolic language we use today. That may not sound exciting, but imagine trying to write computer code without programming languages. That would be impossible. Every advance in notation allows us to think more clearly. Symbols don't just save ink, they save mental energy. They let us tackle bigger ideas. And speaking of ideas, one of the most famous stories about Diophantus isn't in Arithmetica at all. It is on his tombstone, or at least it is according to legend. The Greek anthology preserves a little riddle that supposedly describes his life, and it says, he spent 1/6 of his life as a child, another 1/12 as a youth, and another 1/7 he married. 5 years later, he had a son. His son lived to half his father's age. After his son's death, Diophantus spent 4 years mourning before dying himself. Instead of carving an age into stone, they carved an algebra problem. And honestly, if mathematicians planned my funeral, I'd do something kind of similar, but I'd put a QR code linking to the coffee cup on my website. Oh, speaking of my website, be sure to come visit me at mathsciencehistory.com and click on that coffee button. Make a donation to the podcast, because every donation that you make helps to keep this podcast up and running. Anyhow, back to algebra. I digress. Let's solve the Diophantus tombstone together. Suppose Diophantus had lived X years. Okay, so 1/6 plus 1/12 plus 1/7 plus 5 plus half his life plus 4 years equals his entire lifetime. So when you solve it, you discover that Diophantus lived 84 years, supposedly. Now, whether the story is historically true doesn't really matter, because it perfectly captures something essential. For Diophantus, math wasn't separate from life. Math was life. Even death became an equation waiting to be solved. And that's a remarkably different way of thinking from how many people experience math today. For many students, math is something that happens inside the classroom. You memorize formulas, you take a test, you forget half of it by summer vacation, mission accomplished. But Diophantus saw mathematics differently. To him, math was exploration. It was a puzzle. It was a game. It was a way of understanding relationships hidden beneath the surface. And this is exactly why his work survived. Because great mathematics isn't about today's homework assignment. It's about discovering ideas that future generations can build upon. And they did build upon them. So what does it mean to think mathematically? That question became even more important centuries later when another mathematician encountered Diophantus's work and became completely fascinated by it. I will tell you more about him right after the break. So who was this genius who became fascinated with Diophantus's work? His name was Pierre de Fermat. I mentioned him quite a bit on the podcast. And now, if you've ever heard of Fermat's last theorem, you might remember the story. For more than 350 years, mathematicians struggled with one of the most famous problems in history, and the problem traces back to Diophantus. In the 1600s, Fermat was reading a translated edition of Arithmetica, and in the margin of his copy, he wrote a note claiming that he had discovered a remarkable proof for a problem involving powers of numbers. The problem became known as Fermat's last theorem. The catch? Fermat didn't write down the proof. He just wrote that he had one, which from a historian's perspective is a little like saying, I have discovered the secret to time travel. Unfortunately, I misplaced the instructions. Thanks, Pierre. Very helpful. For centuries, mathematicians tried to recreate Fermat's missing proof. They developed new areas of mathematics. They created entirely new tools. And finally, in 1994, mathematician Andrew Wiles announced a proof of Fermat's last theorem. It took hundreds of years, thousands of pages of mathematical development, and generations of mathematicians building on each other's ideas. And it all started because someone was curious about a book written by Diophantus. That right there, hundreds of years, thousands of years, intriguing questions. This is the power of mathematics. A question asked almost 2,000 years ago can still shape the future. And here's where things get really interesting, because today we're asking a similar question. What happens when we have a new tool like artificial intelligence? A recent article in Science News explored how AI is beginning to transform mathematics by helping researchers verify proofs. And instead of relying only on humans to carefully check every logical step, AI systems can assist mathematicians by confirming that arguments follow the strict rules required for a formal proof. And this is a huge development because mathematics is built on certainty. A beautiful idea is not enough. A clever argument is not enough either. A proof has to be airtight. One tiny mistake can collapse an entire argument. Mathematicians have joked for centuries that checking proofs is the least glamorous part of a job. It's like being a detective who solves the mystery and then spends the next year making sure every comma in the paperwork is correct. AI may become incredibly useful for that process, and that is kind of exciting. But here's the question that I keep coming back to. If AI can verify mathematics, will humans still need to learn mathematics? I think Diophantus would have an interesting answer, because the value of mathematics isn't only the final answer. The value of mathematics is the journey, the struggle, and the moment where you stare at a problem and think, I have absolutely no idea how to solve this. And then you try. And then you try again. And somewhere along the way, your brain changes. You begin to see patterns. You develop intuition. You learn how to approach something unfamiliar. And that is the process of mathematics. Think about learning to play an instrument. Can artificial intelligence play a song perfectly? Maybe. It sounds kind of weird. You can hear the digital stuff in it, but yeah, I guess it can. Can it produce a beautiful performance instantly? I beg to differ. But for humans, if you never practice, your own musical ability does not grow. And this is the same with math. If AI solves every problem before we struggle with it, we might get the answer, but we lose the opportunity to develop the thinker. And thinkers are what create the next breakthroughs. Trust me on this, please. If you're out there listening, trust me, your thinking matters. Now, this doesn't mean AI is the enemy. Well, it's not a big help because data centers are destroying our water supplies and our land. But as far as solving math, it is a help. Every great mathematical tool in history was once considered disruptive. The ancient Babylonians developed methods that changed calculation. The Greeks developed geometry. The printing press spread mathematical knowledge. Calculators changed the way students approach math. Computers transformed what mathematicians could explore. No mathematician today says, real mathematicians don't use calculators because we do. The goal was never to make calculations harder. The goal was to free humans to think about bigger questions. AI may be another step in that long tradition. The question isn't, can AI do mathematics? The question is, how do we conservatively use AI to help humans do better mathematics? And here's why Diophantus matters. He lived in a world without computers, without calculators, without symbolic algebra as we know it today. He had fewer tools than we have today. But what he did have was curiosity. He had persistence. He had the willingness to wrestle with difficult problems. These qualities are still the foundation of mathematical discovery because mathematics doesn't begin with an answer. It begins with a question. Maybe the future mathematician isn't the person who competes against artificial intelligence. Maybe the future mathematician is the person who knows how to conservatively collaborate with it. A mathematician who says, I'm going to struggle with this first. I'm going to understand why this works. I'm going to develop the intuition that allows me to ask better questions. And then when all is said and done, they say to themselves, I'm going to log in once and have AI validate my work. Because believe me, AI could be wrong, and it has been wrong. And your deeper understanding can show you how AI can be wrong. Because questions are where mathematics begins. Humans are still very good at asking questions, and we should never stop asking questions. Diophantus never saw a computer. He never imagined artificial intelligence. He never imagined that nearly 2,000 years after he wrote Arithmetica, people would still be studying his equations. But perhaps he understood something timeless. Mathematics isn't just about numbers. It's about curiosity and creativity and looking at something complicated and believing there must be a way to understand it. Our brains, in my opinion, are far more powerful than AI will ever be. AI may change how we solve problems, and it may change how we verify proofs, and it might even change what it means to be a mathematician. But the most important part of mathematics is the curiosity that makes us ask why. That right there belongs to us humans. So the next time you're facing a difficult problem, don't just immediately ask, can someone or something solve this for me? Don't log in to ChatGPT or Claude. Ask yourself, what can I discover by trying? Because every mathematician from Diophantus up to today begins the same way. They see something they don't understand, and they decide to investigate. And that is the power of mathematics. I'm Gabrielle Burchak, and thank you so much for listening to Math Science History. And until next time, carpe diem. Thank you for listening to Math Science History. If you want the next episode as soon as it drops, just tap follow in your podcast app. Math Science History is brought to you by caffeine. Delicious, delightful, life-supporting caffeine. If you'd like to support the show, you can find the coffee cup link in our show notes or at mathsciencehistory.com. Just click on that coffee cup. Your donations don't really go to coffee, but they really do help cover production costs. The MSH theme is public domain from the late, great music composer and professor, Dr. Lloyd Rogers. All other music is public domain from Pixabay. Until next time, carpe diem.